Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Museum of Glass. I want to thank you for joining us in our afternoon live glassmaking demonstration. My name is David. If you have questions at any given time, I am more than happy to answer any questions you might have about the glass blowing process, and I'm more than welcome to share my glass experience also. But here today we have our visiting artist, Sean, down here with the black t-shirt. Now, Sean O'Neill has been working with glass for over 20 years now, and he's come to the museum to continue to explore his body of work. We are using very fancy pieces of glass that you see laying around the hot shop floor, but with Sean's work, we want to kind of apply a very good technique of using different canes and marinis to attach a nice, oh, looks like we have a school group coming in. All right. So I'll explain everything here in a little bit again. I'll also explain the process that you're going to be seeing here today. For my school group coming in, you just want to fill up the first one and also the second row that we have here. There's always the good best seats that we have here available for you. So make sure everyone scoots in so we fit together. We can also fill in the second row that we have here. All right, you guys all having a good day today? Yeah? So how many days left of school do you guys have left? You guys are out, so this is kind of like a field trip? All right, well, congratulations. You guys have any summer plans? No? We're just gonna hang out? You guys gonna go to the park, ride some bikes? What's up? You guys doing? You guys playing some Fortnite? I don't know. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us here today. This is a pretty awesome summer already. You guys coming to the museum. You have a question? Why is it so hot in here? Let me tell you why, right? So down here at the Museum of Glass, we have all these furnaces that are extremely hot. Both furnaces here hold approximately 1,000 pounds of molten glass. I'm gonna do something special for you guys, just so you guys can feel the heat a little bit more. I know it's hot though in here, but I just wanna kind of show you what we experience here. So this is called the glory hole. It's a place where we reheat the glass. Now, it's about 2,300 degrees. That is hotter than lava. Are you guys ready to feel this? So we try to keep these doors closed to keep the heat located in one area. But when I open that door, oh man, you guys feel that? Now imagine if you're making a big bowl and you have to open all these doors, right? It's gonna get quite hot down here in this hot shop. Luckily, the Museum of Glass has done a couple different things to ensure we're not super hot all the time. I'm gonna close this up just so the glass makers can ensure that this chamber is nice and hot. But that is some of the heat that we will be exposed to here today in our glass making demonstration. We will start here very shortly. So this is called the glory hole. Now, that name comes from Italy. It's an Italian chamber. And then we also have the furnace. Now, the furnace is where the hot glass itself is coming out of. So that door that I just opened there, there's no glass inside of there. And we can see that on the top screen, the diagram, the glory hole, how it works. Essentially, it's a round barrel on its side, lined with fire brick made to insulate and keep the heat inside. It's, again, about 2,300 degrees. Very similar to the glory hole, we have the furnace, which is also powered by natural gas. I'm gonna open the door down on the left-hand side. We can feel a little bit more of this heat. Now, essentially, we are heating up a crucible of hot glass. If we turn this furnace off right now, it'll take approximately about a week for the glass to come back to room temperature, and then another week to heat it back up to its molten state. So instead of wasting 2 weeks waiting for the glass, we just keep it on 24/7, 365 days a year. That furnace has been running for over 7 years straight, nonstop, no holiday breaks, no vacations, none of that. It's always turned on. And again, our fuel source here is natural gas. Now, my favorite part about my job is answering questions, especially for my group down here. Expect a lot of questions from you all. Do you have a question already? I love this already. Is that ice down there? What are we specifically referring to? So this is called an annealer. It's an oven where we can heat up glass. It's also a good oven where we can cook some pizza or heat up a turkey if anyone brought one. Sure. Essentially, it's an oven that can be brought up to 920 degrees and heat up the glass. When we're done making our piece here today, if we leave it out here, it'll actually get too cold too fast, and it can break, crack, or even explode. So if you want to prevent anything from breaking here, it'll have to go into the annealer. The annealer we're going to be using is the one on the right-hand side with the green number 4. Now, for my school group, are you guys all from the same school? You guys all, no? You guys are all from across? So is there a program, essentially, that kind of brought you all together, or are you guys kind of, a program? Which program is it? Can you repeat that again? The rescue mission. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending your day here today. It is Monday. You guys having a good Monday? He's like Garfield doesn't like Mondays. You don't like Mondays? You like Mondays? Who here? Does anyone like Mondays here? Maybe. So, okay, I hate Mondays too. But it's always good down here because we have a really talented crew down here. And again, our featured artist here. So we're set for a really good week. And Sean, our visiting artist, is going to be here every Monday and Tuesday for the next month. I believe his last day will be July 3rd, if I'm correct. So you can always come down here if you have nothing to do. Come to the museum. We can always have some fun down here. I always need someone to talk to also. So the glass making process begins down on that right-hand side, and that is hot molten glass on the end of the rod. It's hard to believe, but that's the same stuff that's probably in your home if you're drinking out of glass cups. That is the exact same material it is made out of, except right now it's at a molten state, so it looks like honey, and it acts like honey. One important rule we will always take is to turn the rod. Notice the glass makers are always turning the rod. If we stop turning the rod at any given moment, the glass will just end up on the ground. And that means we'll have to start all over. But for this piece, if we want to keep it and manipulate it, we'll have to keep turning the rod. Now, in our furnaces, we only have clear glass. And if we want to work with colored glass, it's going to have to be added separately. Ooh, we're going to find out what we're going to be doing right now. But essentially, down here, we have a garage. It's a temporary place where we store glass. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pull some Merini. Now, Merini is this complicated way to design and pattern glass. We see some of this Merini down here. I brought out as an example. This is what we're going to create. We're going to create a long strand of glass that will be later used. And the one we're going to be using is going to be very similar to what we see down here. It's more of a cane effect. But if you're wondering what's going to be happening down on the right-hand side, well, we see these canes of glass down here. This is what we're going to be focused on. The one that we have down here is white glass. The next one that we're going to be pulling is black glass. That's the only difference between the one that we're going to be showing on our top screen and the one that we're going to start. Down on that left-hand side, this Merini is made from, or this cane is made from a handful of these canes that we pulled earlier. Now, this stuff is like pulling taffy. We'll stretch it from one end of the room to the opposite till we get kind of a number 2 pencil-sized cane. And this is what we've picked up. So our bundle down there is just filled with hundreds of these, or maybe like 50 of them, of the canes. Now, down in the center, we're going to start on a different project. We're going to hold off for a little bit on that, because right now the action is going to continue down on the right-hand side until our featured artist, Sean, is ready to kind of put a piece together for you all. I do want to take a second and talk about color because that is one thing that we're going to be working with here shortly. Now, the color itself is made out of adding different metals of the periodic table of elements. Would you like to pass this around? You want to be the first one? Here, so this is the glass color. This is what we're purchasing, all right? So don't drop it. Now, to make that, we buy it from a manufacturer. You can pass it around to everyone around you, all right? Sounds good? So this color is purchased from either New Zealand or Germany, I believe, are some of the two major color manufacturers. But essentially, the way that they make colors by adding different metals of the periodic table of elements. So depending on what your favorite color is, we'll add a different metal, which gets to my group down here. What are you guys' favorite colors? You guys have favorite colors, right? What's yours? Maroon? Probably like a cobalt or an iron mixture to create blue glass. Do any of you guys like blue glass or blue in general? Yes, blue is cobalt. If you like red or pink, it's just purple. So purple is manganese, and if you add a lot of manganese, it can create black glass. But if you like a red and pink glass, you have expensive taste because red and pink glass is made from gold, which makes it some of the more expensive color in the glass industry. So again, we can just pass around this bar of glass to make sure we don't drop it and make sure everyone gets a chance to hold it so we can find out what it's made of and what we're going to be working with here today. That is just a basic orange color. That one wouldn't be too much. But if I was passing around a red or pink one, well, we could be looking up to like $100 for a bar. So all right, so we had a question about what this stuff was down here. We have one floating around. So make sure it keeps floating around so everyone can see it, and then it has to end up to the front, all right? We don't want to lose that piece of glass. Essentially, there's quite some time into it, but make sure we keep passing it around, all right, everyone? So down here, we have something similar, some cane work. So this stuff is a little bit different, but we're going to see something cool. We're going to roll this pattern up, and notice it's a sheet of glass right now, right? We're going to roll that and so it can become a cylinder and essentially a bubble later on. Isn't that incredible? We're going to roll that up. It's going to be super satisfying. It's one of my favorite parts about glass making is all this kind of roll-up techniques we do here. Now, this Museum of Glass has a very intricate shape. If you haven't had a chance to look up, I highly recommend it. The museum is in an iconic cone-shaped design. And this cone-shaped design is very iconic to Tacoma, but it's also a very functional hot shop. So in most hot shops around this time, it get quite hot, but due to our cone-shaped design, We have a natural chimney where hot air can rise, and then that fan on the top is just sucks the heat away from us, allowing us to stay nice and warm all year around, which is quite incredible about this hot shop. All right, team. We'll make sure we keep passing around our Marini so everyone can have a chance to look at it. Do we know where the Marini is at, the little piece of glass that's floating around? All right, well, as long as it keeps floating around, I'm okay with it. Make sure everyone gets a chance to see it. Are you guys ready to see something really cool right now? We're gonna be rolling up some glass right now. So our featured artist down here, Sean O'Neill, he's gotten a blowpipe. He's gonna be gathering glass here in a few. And he's gonna be making what we call the moil. The moil is the amount of glass that we need to pick up the canes itself. So that's what we're gonna be working on. So before we do that, the rods that we use here at the museum, they're made out of stainless steel, which is a very poor conductor of heat, so our hands aren't getting too hot. With that said, though, even the heat is still builds up on the rod, and so we will use a little bit of cold water to cool it down. But notice, if you look at the rod itself, we're only turning it and only grabbing it where the rod is still shiny. So if there's still some shine, we're still gonna be placing our hand in that general area. All right, team. Well, has everyone seen the Marini around here? Everyone seen the Marini? Can we get it back down to the center? All right, well, Sean gathers some glass out of the furnace. Now, essentially what's going on is due to the consistency of the glass, on contact with the rod, it will stick. Now, I'm sure everyone here likes honey. You guys like honey on your waffles, your pancakes, right? So remember that honey sticks to everything, right? So the glass is very similar, that it sticks to anything, especially when it's a rod, one of these steel rods, it will stick to it on contact. And here we go. So this is gonna become the kind of the flat patty, what we call the collar. The collar is the massive glass that's used to attach the canes. Thank you. All right, team. See ya. Thank you so much for joining us. If you guys have some more time, you guys are more than welcome to come back down here. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And please enjoy your summer, all right? Enjoy your summer. And look at this, check this out. This sheet of glass is now going to be rolled upon this collar that we have. And this is the start of our piece. Isn't that incredible? We just turned a sheet of glass into a cylinder, and this cylinder will now be turned into a bubble. That is the next step that we take. We're going to ensure that the seam closes up nicely, so you don't see that there was a seam at all to begin with. And that's what our featured artist, Sean, is now going to work on. He's going to work on creating that seam, making sure it's going to be nice on contact. Now these canes are rested on a kiln shelf that's lined with kiln wash, a release agent to ensure that the glass isn't going to stick in that general area. The kiln wash that the Museum of Glass uses is produced right around locally out in Puget Sound. We go to our clay mines here. We mine a little bit of clay just in a little plastic baggie. We then bring it back to the museum, and we will use that as our release agent, our kiln wash. Ooh, do I know where the water cups are at? So we actually have a little bit of water out here. There's a little cups, all right? So for all our visitors, I know it's quite hot down here. The hot shop, we do have water down here, but we also have water out available in our in the cafe just outside also. Yeah, I want to make sure everyone stays hydrated down because it is a hot one. It is the summer, the beautiful time around Washington in the state. So it is going to be a nice one. So down here, we're going to be stretching this massive glass that we have. So Danny is standing on the marver. We're going to begin to stretch that from one end. We want an even thickness all around this massive glass. So we're going to try to ensure we have an even amount. All right, well, again, if we have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about the glass process you're seeing. You have questions? Oh, I love questions. What's your question? Oh yeah, glass is fragile. It can be fragile. If you make it thick, if we make like a thick cup, it's not fragile. It can actually drop a couple of times. You know, I love your question so much. I love your enthusiasm. So, so down in the center, we've been working on really ensuring that our canes of glass are together in one. So that's what we've been going for down here. So I mentioned earlier that we go out to our clay mines around our local area to use as a kiln wash. But even with our kiln wash, some dirt and debris can still stick on the glass when we get it hot. And so what you're seeing is us using a diamond tip Dremel to get rid of any dirt or debris that might be on that surface. We're gonna spend a lot of time working on this piece, so we want to ensure we're happy with the surface and there's nothing on there that can essentially be magnified when we add clear glass on the surface. Okay. Rupert Strops. No, we don't. We make them every now and then for like special demonstrations, but those are actually quite dangerous. Yeah, they're really dangerous because people sometimes put them in their pocket and they can kind of crack there. Actually create some pretty nasty stuff. So we had a question about if we make Rupert Strops down here. I'm actually gonna go look for one right now, see if we have one laying around. We might have one. I don't know if we will, but we can always kind of talk a little bit about what that is, and I can kind of talk about what glass is. But it's fun to know that glass isn't like any other material out in the world. It's an amorphous solid. Some people believe that glass should have its own state of matter because it's not a liquid or a gas, really. But when it's cold, the glass is technically solid. When it's hot, it's technically a liquid. But even, I say technically because even at this cold state, even the glass that you have in your home, it's still theoretically a liquid because the molecules are still moving. It might be at a super, super slow pace, but the molecules are in fact still moving. Even at its cold state, glass will never crystallize or form a crystalline structure. So the atoms will always be moving around, which is just amazing. There's no other thing in the world that does what glass does. It looks like the team got rid of all the Prince Rupert drops laying around. I understand why, they're quite dangerous. But another fun fact about glass is that glass cannot be carbon dated. It does not deteriorate, which is impressive because even the glass that's found throughout history, we don't actually know when it was made. We typically carbon date the things around it, but it's unsure if that glass was made 50 years prior to that when it was buried, which is quite amazing with glass. Yes? How do we temper the glass here at the museum? So all the glass that we make here will always go through an annealing cycle. The annealing cycle will bring the glass back to room temperature. So down on your right-hand side, we have an annealer. This oven is sitting at 920 degrees, and this is essentially the tempering process that it will take. It will slowly cool back to room temperature depending on its thickness. Telescope glass, like the Subaru telescope, the glass for there was annealed for about 3 months. So 3 months, it slowly came back to room temperature. Our glass down here is not incredibly thick. So 24 hours, 10 hours should do the trick. But again, it's depending on the thickness. There is a mathematical formula that you can use to decide exactly how long the annealing cycle should be. So the colors, well, can we tell the age of glass by the colors? Sorta. So one impressive thing that's going on right now is that actually a lot of recipes to glass color are kind of being lost. They're not being passed down through family anymore. And so old colors that you see in Gothic cathedrals, they're very known because that was like a exploration of color. All those colors that you see in those old kind of churches, more than half of them we can't reproduce to this day, just because we don't know the exact components and the recipe that they use. The glass that we use here at the museum is it's made about 45 minutes north of Seattle, and it's called Spectrum Glass Nugget, and that's what we fill our furnace with. The actual glass, we know what they add. We know it's silica sand, soda ash, and lime, but we don't know the recipe, and that's actually like their top secret is the recipe of the glass. And even now, colors, all the colors that we buy from our manufacturer, their color is a recipe that only they know. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a fantastic rest of your day. One good place to view the live glassmaking is the top balcony. We have some amazing artwork up there, all made here at the Museum of Glass Floor, but it's also a great place to view the glassmaking, just take any photos or videos of the action going on. It's always my favorite place to hang out here when I come to the museum. So how often do we make mistakes and start all over? So this is the highest level of professional glassmaking. Mistakes do happen even at this level, but the team you see here are professionals, so they are trained to work with glass. Can we reuse the glass if we mess up on? Only if it's clear. If this piece down here in the center, if for some weird reason get messed up, we will always try to fix it. It's not what you can make, it's what you can fix. That's what I was told as a glassmaker. So that glass always won't act the same, so it's up to you as an artist and a craftsperson to kind of diagnose the glass and see what you can make out of it. Do we have any other questions from our audience? Any other questions that you may have about what you're seeing here today? It's totally fine if you don't. Again, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. So down on the right-hand side, earlier we pulled some Merini. We noticed that we were on the table and we stretched it from the bottom to the top. We're going to be doing that same process. So this is going to be used later on during this residency. So Sean, our featured artist, is going to be here every Monday and Tuesday for the next month. So until July 3rd, he's going to be here at the museum. And right now, being his first day, he's doing a lot of prep work that he's going to use for the rest of this residency. A lot of the detail stuff. We're going to go ahead and take care of that today. Now with the piece down in the center, we're going to create into a cup. Now this cup, when it's complete, we're going to stuff it with glass on the inside. The reason we're doing this is so we can get two different patterns in one piece. That way we can have this beautiful kind of cane work on the inside and then a solid color right behind it. And now notice down here, this is the actual glass blowing part of glass making. Blowing through the blowpipe. We're blowing about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. So it's not a lot of air, but it does vary. If you listen very closely, you can hear the communication going beyond with the team. Like blow softly, blow hard, or blow gently. Notice one of the shaping tools we use is a wet padded newspaper. Well, I hope everyone's having a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here today at the Museum of Glass. We have a few different projects going on, but we are going to be focusing on a project that we have sitting inside this annealer now. Earlier we made a cup and we put that cup away to slowly cool down. We will be using it later on during this residency, but as of right now, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next project. Sitting inside of here, very similar, we have another cup. Now that cup has been brought up to room temperature. I believe we are now going to use it. Do we have any questions from the audience? Again, my name is David. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about the glass blowing process. You can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show as we continue to work with the hot molten mass. Now, for our visitors here, I am going to play a short video for you. It's called our airplane video. It's something unique that the Museum of Glass made here with the help of a charitable trust. So I'm going to play this video for you all as we give our glass makers a few times to rest. We're going to catch up on this next idea. So on our top screen now, let's see how the museum takes on this project.
To fabricate a scale model float plane out of glass takes tremendous effort. Figuring out the exact proportions of the propeller, the length of the body versus the wingspan were all extremely difficult. The Legacy project started off as a collaboration between the Museum of Glass and the Murdoch Charitable Trust. We were commissioned to design and fabricate a glass airplane to commemorate Jack Murdoch. We started by overlaying two contrasting colors of glass that would later show the design elements in the plane. We're working with the glass at a temperature of over 1500 degrees. We create a small color cup to allow for a nice even distribution of color. The colored cup was then stuffed with clear glass to give us enough mass to make the body or the fuselage of the plane. Glass blowing is a team effort. Here at the Museum of Glass, we're unique in that this team has been working together for over 10 years. Each member of our team played a specific role in the creation of the plane. We use a variety of tools to shape and design the body. As you can see here, we're using some cork paddles to rough it out. The body is then transferred to yet another blowpipe so we can finish up the tail of the fuselage. Using those same cork paddles, we give the bottom of the plane a gentle curve before it's put away. After the plane is finished being formed, it's put away into an annealing oven to cool for several days. Once the fuselage was made, we moved on to making the pontoons. We decided we needed to fabricate a steel mold to allow us to make multiples. In order to have the pontoons match the plane, we used the same white color bar. This time, it is solid. The solid glass is then heated up to approximately 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it's pressed into a steel mold. The pontoons are then put into another annealing oven to cool down. In our cold shop, the fuselage of the plane is now being ground or sanded down to remove any unwanted material. We then taped off the plane, and using our sandblaster, we revealed the tail numbers, the windows, and the pinstripes on the fuselage of the plane. The sandblasting process is often very rewarding as the color is quickly revealed, bringing life to the aircraft. After being sandblasted, the planes were then returned to the cold shop to be cleaned up and polished. The wings, the vertical and the horizontal stabilizers were all water jet cut out of handmade sheet glass, again made from the same white color to match the body of the plane. Once the glass parts were finished, we fabricated a small steel structure to hold the pontoons to the body of the plane. The nose cone was turned on a lathe while the propeller was carved out of a sheet of steel to make a fully functional propeller. Now that we have all the parts of our plane, it was brought back to the cold shop where the assembly began. The vertical and horizontal stabilizers were notched out to fit the tail of the plane, while the wing was glued into place. The gluing process takes many hours. We start with 2 clean surfaces, apply the glue, and it sits for over 72 hours before a full cure. It was an honor and a challenge to work on the legacy project for the Murdoch Charitable Trust.
Now those airplanes have already left the state of Washington. They're actually being displayed out in British Columbia, I believe, in Canada. Isn't that amazing, though? Anything is possible in the glass. This video I wanted to conclude is anything is possible out of glass. If you can dream it, we can make it. That was a very unique project that the team worked on down here, but based on a different story, let's jump right back into the action that we see down on this hot shop floor. Now, down on the right-hand side, we have picked up another bundle of cane. Now, this cane is going to be that same, in fact, Marini we pulled earlier. From the top to the bottom, we'll stretch it out. Now, that action is going to be going on down on that right-hand side of the hot shop, while down in the center, we'll begin our next project. Well, if you're joining us now, welcome to the Museum of Glass. We thank you for joining us here today. in our afternoon live glassmaking demonstration. Now, down in the center, we're going to go ahead and begin a cane roll-up. Now, this is going to be very interesting down here. We have a kiln shelf. We're going to begin to preheat it so we can attach the canes and have them preheat. So the first thing we do is we're going to heat that plate up. We have Danny down here, black t-shirt. She's going to enter what we call the glory hole. The glory hole is the chamber we use to reheat the glass. Now, that chamber is approximately 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. So if we throw a piece of paper in there right now, it won't even just catch on fire. It just disintegrates instantly. That's how hot it is inside. It is powered by natural gas, which is our fuel source here at the Museum of Glass, essentially. It is a round barrel on its side, lined with fire brick to insulate and keep the heat inside. Another major piece of equipment we have here is our glass furnace, very similar to the glory hole, with the exception that this one actually holds molten glass. So here at the museum, we have two of these furnaces, one on the left, one on the right. They're both holding 1,000 pounds of molten glass. So when I open this door, it just looks red and orange. So we use that diagram to really break it down and show you what's going on behind this door. We are heating up a crucible. A hot bowl of soup is being heated up, and that's where our molten glass sits at. Now that we've heated up our kiln shelf, we will lay our canes out on here, and they're going to begin to preheat. So we're just going to lay them here for a few minutes so they can absorb some heat, and at that same time, we can begin the glass making fun. Now, again, my name is David. If you have questions at any given time, I am more than happy to answer any questions you may have. You can raise your hand or shout my name, and I'll be right on over and answer, or even discuss and talk about my glass making experience. Now notice the canes that we're working on the center, they're the same as the ones you see on the right-hand side of the hot shop floor. The only difference is the ones on the center have not been bundled up. So they haven't been grouped together to make a pole. Rather, this time around, we've just laid them out evenly. Now, if you go through our gallery in our store and you see the pieces that they have straight lines, any color, if they have straight lines, they did this technique, a cane roll-up. So we're going to see that here very shortly. So this time you see Sean gathering glass out of that furnace. Now, it's hard to believe, but nearly all the glass you see here on this hot shop floor at one point or another was sitting inside of the furnace. So we're gonna manipulate this massive glass. Now, for our visitors joining us, I do wanna let you know, I know that it is hot in here, the hot seasons arrived on us. We do have some complimentary water on the entrance on your right-hand side. We also have water available in our cafe, all right? Just want to make sure everyone stays hydrated down here. We do have this iconic cone shape here at the museum where it's a natural chimney. Hot air can rise on the top. We just have a fan, sucks the heat away from us, allowing us to stay nice and cool. We even have fans down below the stands so we can constantly get some fresh air blown down to the museum. But again, we do have complimentary water if you guys would like some. So down on that right-hand side, Sean's been gathering glass, and he's been gathering the necessary amount of glass to roll up on the canes that we have here in the center. So we're gonna be rolling these up on the massive glass that Sean's been manipulating. He needs to have enough of the diameter, so when he rolls on the surface, all the canes will land perfectly, and there's not an extra cane or a space where there's clear glass. One of the tools that we use is to accomplish this symmetrical shape is a wooden block. And that wooden block is made out of fruit wood. We love burning cherry wood here in this hot shop floor because it does last longer than any other typical type of wood that we might work with. Welcome back, buddy. Oh yeah, so this balcony area, it's a great place to view the live glass making, all right? Just giving you that heads up. Oh, so the glass itself is made out of sand. Sand is our basic ingredient. So if you go to your beach sand, if you make a bonfire that's huge, you can melt the sand that's right below that. I would recommend, if you're really interested in doing that, taking some seaweed and like placing it down below. The seaweed will act as a flux. Seaweed, just the natural seaweed. If you're on a beach, get some of that seaweed, put that below the fire where it's hotter. Make sure you have a chamber or airflow where a lot of air can flow, and just take some natural seaweed. Natural seaweed is a good, will lower the melting temperature. If you don't have seaweed, you can bring some like laundry detergent. That's also a flux that you can use. Some like lime, if they have lime around there, around maybe like some rocks, some lime rocks, you can use that. If you don't do that, you can just bring like some laundry detergent that's heavy in borax. Yeah, no problem. Why do we wear headphones? We don't wear headphones down here. We actually don't. We're always, sometimes people wear headphones because there is like a high screeching noise. Everyone hears that, right? Like the high screeching, pitching noise in here, like the whirling sound in here. So natural gas is a low burning fuel, so you need a lot of oxygen flowing in. That weird sound you're hearing is the blower that's rushing in all the forced oxygen inside the furnace. Oh, so down there, you're talking about my homeboy Jay down here. So Jay's in charge of all our AV needs. Everything you see on the top screen is AV's putting it together. So they're constantly communicating. That's what they're doing there, just so you guys can get the best view on the top screen. You want to give me a high five? Yay! What's your name?
Dicky.
Dicky?
Yeah, D-I-C-K-I-E.
Oh, you have any hobbies? What grade are you in? You're fourth? Nice. Right on.
And
We see glass blowing. So today is really a day on creating a lot of basic designs. Glass blowing has a very misleading name because we're not actually not blowing all the time. It just happens to be that that's the name that really stuck with this medium. A better name would be glass making, but for some weird reason, that's what really stuck with the medium itself. There's not going to be too much glass blowing here today, but there will be a lot of glass sculpting. We're going to be picking up this pattern that you see now. So down here, our featured artist has been gathering all the necessary glass to roll on the very surface of this. So he's going to go ahead and get that ready here very shortly. Well, it's now time to kind of bring our pieces together. So we're going to roll right on the very surface to put this pattern together. So that action is going to be happening down here in the center of the hot shop floor. We're going to ensure that all these canes have stuck together and fused together. This way, when we attach them to our Cora glass, everything's going to fuse together. We're not going to have one cane that we won't pick up. So we want to pick all of these canes together. Now, this will be the last heat we take until we apply this pattern on here. So we're going to roll right on over our featured artist. Sean down on the right-hand side with the black t-shirt. He's going to come right on over with this hot core of glass. We're going to roll on this surface and pick up this pattern. So this is the heat. I believe this is it. And come right on over. The reason we're doing this is how we're gonna attach. So later on, this is gonna be used also to create a very decorative pattern. A lot of the texture and design of Sean's work is actually created in the cold shop where the glass is cold. And he will grind using different tools. This time around, Sean wants to limit that and also attach the pattern very early here in the hot shop. So this is one way he's going to be attaching that, is by using decorative bits of cane and moraine to bring our piece together. Hello. Welcome to the Museum of Glass. Thank you for joining us. Well, if you're joining us now, welcome to the Museum of Glass. We thank you so much for joining us here today on our afternoon live glass making demonstration. Here today, our featured artist is down here in the black, Sean O'Neill, our featured artist coming to us from Bremerton. Now, originally he's coming from Philadelphia, just outside Philly, where he then later went to school for glass. Now, Sean's been working with glass for over 20 years now. And he has ended up at the Museum of Glass here. Now, Sean's going to be our featured artist every Monday and Tuesday for the next month. So today we're focusing on a lot of the prep work that he's going to need for this rest of the residency that he will be here at the museum. So that's what we're going to focus on here today. Notice that Sean has this long, massive glass. And I do want to show you what we're going to be working on here today. So on our top screen, we're going to flip through some of Sean's work so we can begin to understand what we're making here today at the Museum of Glass and what is the end goal, what is the end result of this residency here at the museum. Essentially, you'll notice that there is a lot of texture, a lot of design on the surface, and that design is created in the cold shop. Now, Sean wishes to add the design in the hot shop, and to do so, he's going to be working with Kane and Marini elements to achieve that goal. So this is an ongoing process, and his body of work will continue to grow here at the museum. So the top work that you see on our live stream will eventually be made here at the museum. As of right now, we're going to focus on adding detail, however. Some of that detail can be made with the pieces that you're going to see. We're going to create this into flat cane, so flat sheets of glass that we will use later on. So this glass that we're flattening right now, we're going to stretch. And we will use this glass later on here at the museum. So that's going to be going on down in the center as we get ready to stretch that massive glass out. At the same time, we have something going on down here. I do just want to hit very briefly, because I don't want to leave you in the dark. I want everyone to know what's going on down here on the hot shop floor. When we're ever done with the glass, even the glass that we produce today, it will have to be brought back to room temperature. So the glass that you're going to see being pulled out of this oven has been cooling down for the past 2 days. So it's on the thicker side, and we can see that. Again, I do just want to hit about what's going on down here. This glass is going to be going to a cold shop where it will be worked on and finished. So my name is David. I love questions. It's like my favorite part about my job is answering questions. So you are more than welcome to ask me as many questions as you like. Once we're done with this piece, I'm going to break down the glass blowing once again so we know what's going down here and the equipment we have. So we're just gonna finish this piece up here, and then we'll go ahead and resume and continue with the live glass making. Other than that, Sean's gonna get this mass nice and hot. Up in the top balcony, we have Danny. We're gonna go ahead and hand her this mass of glass, and we can begin to stretch. Isn't that awesome, right? We can stretch glass out very similar to taffy. So once this piece is complete, for those of us who joined us a little later, you're totally fine. I'm gonna catch you up to the action going on. And this glass, if we leave it out here, it's gonna get too cold too fast. So we're slowly gonna cool it and bring it back to room temperature. So off into this oven where it'll cool down. If we leave that massive glass out here, it's gonna break. It's gonna get too dang cold, so we will slowly cool it down. All right, and check that out. Well, we are gonna continue to manipulate that mass of glass that we have here so we have an even pull all the way around. But with that said, I do wanna begin to break down some of the pieces of equipment that we have here and really what's going on down here on this hot shop floor. As we stretch that massive glass, I do wanna take a second and talk about the heat that we are exposed to here at the museum. Now, we do offer complimentary water. It's gonna be on the entrance when you come into your right. Again, it's very important to stay hydrated here in the hot shop floor. Well, as the crew finishes that piece up, I do wanna share this glory hole so I can show you what type of heat we're exposed to. Are you guys ready for this? It's quite hot, again, and you're gonna feel a lot of this heat that the glass makers work with. So this chamber is what we use to reheat the glass. It's about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets quite hot because of this chamber. So I'm gonna open these doors. If you're sitting on kind of this end, you're gonna feel this heat that we're exposed to, all right? So if you're just, you guys can feel that here, right? I can already understand. It gets quite hot down here. This is one of the major reasons why we work with this heat down here. Again, this is about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. If anybody brought like s'mores or anything, we can make those real quick here, all right? Very similar to the glory hole, we have a furnace where the hot molten glass is being pulled out of. Here at the museum, well, it's harder to believe, but all that glass that we're working with started off down in our furnace. Now, this is slightly colder than the glory hole, but it's at 2,100 degrees, which is about the same temperature as molten lava, which is quite impressive. So we work with fire down here at the Museum of Glass. And what a success on that piece. We will use all those pieces of glass, but let's give our featured artist here a round of applause, Sean O'Neill, everyone. Again, Sean will be coming back to the museum every Monday and Tuesday for the next month until July 3rd. I believe it was his last day here at the museum. Well, now that we know some of the basic things here in the hot shop, I do also want to introduce the garage, which is a temporary place where we store glass and keep it nice and warm. So this oven is about 1,000 degrees, and it's a place where we preheat color. If we want to work with color here on this hot shop floor, we'll have to first preheat it to begin to work with it. Thank you so much for joining us here today. So our crew is gonna they need a few seconds, but notice it's all about communication, and glass blowing, it's key. You can notice the team is already communicating on the next project. and they're going to be jumping right back into the action. The rods that we use here are specifically made for us, and they're made out of stainless steel, which is a very poor conductor of heat. So the heat is not being transferred all the way through. If you take a close inspection of the rod, notice that towards the tip, it becomes dull gray and black. We're not actually placing our hands in the darkened area. Rather, we're placing our hands where the rod is still shining, where there's still shine towards that rod. And again, stainless steel is a very poor conductor of heat. If we want to work with color, well, we're going to repeat this step down here. We've gathered a little bit of clear glass as a support. And here we have bars of white glass that we're going to be working with. It is first preheated. Thank you so much for joining us. The color is first preheated so we can begin to use it. Now, if you want to see the best view of the live glass making, I highly recommend the top balcony. And don't forget that we have complimentary water here at the entrance on your right-hand side. Please, everyone, stay hydrated. Welcome everyone to the Museum of Glass. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is David. If you have questions, I am more than happy to answer any questions, but the hot mass of glass is being pulled out of our furnace, holding approximately 1,000 pounds of glass. On the top screen, we're seeing a diagram of our furnace to kind of simplify what's going on inside of there. After this, we're also going to talk a little bit about the glory hole. Now, the glory hole is the chamber where we reheat the glass. So if you notice in our diagram, it is a round barrel on its side that's lined with fire brick made to insulate and keep the heat inside. So you guys came in at the good time of day. We've actually been warming up for this piece the whole day. You're gonna see some quite amazing things. We're gonna enter this kiln down here that we've preheated up to 1,000 degrees. We're gonna pick some glass that's inside of there right now. Well, as we continue this demonstration, a good place to view this is the top balcony. It's a great place to take any photos or videos of the action going on. But right now, we're gonna let this core cool down, essentially. We are gonna be gathering some more hot glass on that top layer. By the way, all the artwork that's on the balcony was made here at the museum. So just so you know, all that beautiful artwork was in fact made by our hot shop crew. With that said, and check this out, as we exit the furnace with more hot glass, if you've ever wondered how you make something large, how you make something big, we will repeat this step of gathering several times until we have gathered sufficient amount of glass to make whatever we wish to. Now, these rods are made out of stainless steel, being a very poor conductor of heat, but even with that, the rods still build up quite some heat. So we will use cold water on the very top layer of that surface of the rod, which in turn cools it down. So if you're wondering what we're going to be doing right now is sitting inside this kiln, we have a sheet of glass. Right now what we're doing is creating what we call a plunger. The plunger will be the base on which we pick up this pattern. All this clear glass we're going to get rid of in the end. What we're really focused is picking up the pattern that we have sitting in the kiln right now. So again, as we work on this massive glass, we're going to bring over to the kiln to pick up that pattern. But what I just want to get to is, although this is just the means of picking up the massive glass here very shortly. If you're wondering when the glass blowing process will resume, it's going to be here very shortly once we pick up our sheet of glass sitting in the annealer. So down here, we have a caliper, and it shows us the width, essentially, of the sheet of glass that we're heating up. So we want to make sure that our plunger will cover that essentially all the way around, so it's the right temperature. first person to ever actually use this, and I'll call Nick over and be like, how do you use this? Well, I hope we're all ready for this action down here. So we're gonna let this cool down a little bit. That way when we get it hot, only the skin will get hot. And if we turn too fast, centrifugal force will actually pull the walls out and make our plunger long or larger than it should be or wider. So we're simply gonna let it cool down. All right, so we're gonna bring out our piece of glass right now. It's gonna be going onto this kiln shaft. We can see the glass or the massive glass that we're gonna be working with. The first thing we will take is to do the initial heat. Well, we come right on over to the surface. A little rocking back and forth. Now, what we're going for is the bottom pattern. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna form that into a bubble. That bubble will then be formed into a cup, and we're gonna use that bottom. All that clear glass that you see on there, we're gonna get rid of that, all of that. All we want that clear glass for is as a support and a means to pick up this pattern. If you haven't had a chance to check out the rest of the museum, I highly recommend it now. The museum will be closing within 35 minutes. So if you haven't had a chance to check the rest of it out, we do close the galleries a little sooner than that. So now is a good chance to check all of that out. Well, with all this work, we've essentially created this constriction. That constriction will become the break off point. And again, what we're really after is just the very bottom portion of this vessel, which will be the pattern. What we will now do is bring over the transfer rod, and we can actually hold off on that. Looks like the crew has decided to kind of hold off on that. Well, this massive glass that we have, we're gonna make into a cup. This cup will later be stuffed with a different color on the inside, and this is how we're gonna get two different patterns together in one piece. So the next step for this one is to bring over a punty, massive glass that will be brought over. This is gonna be the transfer rod, and we can begin to work on the opposite end. With that said, do we have any questions from our audience? Try to keep you updated with the information and the massive glass that we're working with here. But again, my name is David. I am more than happy to answer any questions you might have. You can raise your hand or shout my name and I'll be right on over. Essentially right now, the transfer rod will now be made. We can begin the glass making. For the rest of the reviewers still watching us, thank you so much for sticking with us. I do want to give you a heads up that the bathrooms here at the museum will be closing here very shortly. The museum will also be closing in about 10 minutes. And I'm sure the rest of the galleries are about to be closed, so sit back, relax. We'll stay in here at the museum, the hot shop, till we close up here. Now, for the rest of the day, we're just going to clean up this cup that we make here. This is going to be the final piece we make of the day, but we will be using it later on. If you want to join us later this week or maybe next week, as Sean takes over the Museum of Glass Hot Shop every Monday and Tuesday for another month. So until July 3rd, I believe, is going to be his last day here at the Museum of Glass. But if you can't join us in person, it is totally fine. We understand. The sun is out. It is hot down here, but you can always join us on our live stream. Everything you see on the top screen is live streamed through YouTube and our very own website. Because we do all forms of social media, everything from Instagram to Twitter and Facebook. We do it all down here at the Museum of Glass. All is left to do now is to cool our piece back down to room temperature. If we leave it out here, it'll get too cold too fast. It can break, crack, and even explode. Now, if we want to prevent it, we will slowly cool it down in this oven we have. It's sitting at 920 degrees. And it will slowly cool down over the period of the next 10 hours. So depending on the thickness of the glass, it can vary its length inside that chamber. About 10 hours is good enough for our piece. But telescope glass, used to see the universe, cools down for about 3 months. That's how thick that glass is. So it really depends on the thickness. There is a formula, mathematical formula, that you could use to determine the length of the annealing cycle. Here at the museum, we keep records of everything we anneal and the thickness and what we can get away with, just so we can have a reference chart when we make something different or unique here. We don't really know how to gauge its thickness. Well, we have that covered down here at the museum. As this concludes the last piece, In the last demonstration of our afternoon, want to thank everyone for joining us here today. We have an amazing AV crew. They did all an amazing job making sure we have the best camera view. So we'd like to thank them. Also, amazing crew that Sean has brought over, our featured artist himself, Sean O'Neill. Sean's going to be coming back again every Monday and Tuesday for the next month until July 3rd, which will be his last day here at the museum. Well, with a little touch of the cold tools, I will stress the glass out, cause a crack mark, a little tap. It's broken free. On its way to the annealer, will cool down now for the next 10 hours. Again, my name is David. We want to thank you so much for joining us in our afternoon live glassmaking demonstration. This museum will be closing in about 5 minutes now. You don't have to go home. You just can't stay here, unfortunately. But again, my name is David. Our featured artist here today was Sean O'Neill. We hope to see you some other time. This summer is going to be quite fun. We have a really packed schedule here with visiting artists from across the world and across the country will be coming down to the museum later on.